YNA is a podcast that focuses on mental health and other aspects relating to what goes on inside a person's head. We are by no means professionals in this field and only aim to make these conversations about mental health easier for the listener. Nothing we say or talk about is professional advice unless explicitly mentioned. If you seek professional advice or experience symptoms of an actual mental health disorder, please contact a professional or visit your closest center for behavioral health. You are not alone.
Hello. Welcome back to You're Not Alone. This topic today is on divorce. We both have never been divorced, so the information that we'll be giving is on divorce and to help someone who's going through a divorce.
Mm-hmm. Or if you're, one of the family members
of
being affected by the divorce.
Being affected by a divorce. Yep. I have my sister went through a divorce. Cheyenne here has seen his parents be divorced.
Parents went through a divorce.
So we're just going to give out information to help someone who's just maybe struggling through their divorce, family member through the divorce. Parents separating isn't easy. It's never been. Watching your parents argue and fight. My parents, I saw I call my parents roommates. They're not in a marriage anymore, as I can tell. They love each other very much. But some statistics today: more than 40% of all marriages still end in divorce. In the United States, the divorce rate has declined from an all-time high of about 50% in the 1970s and 80s. About 50% of American children will be witnesses to the breakup of their parents' marriage. Of these, nearly half will also see the breakup of a parent's second marriage as well, which could be even tougher. Imagine going through 2 divorces. That's a whole different.
Yeah, it's got to be tough. It's not just your mom or your dad splitting up. You're kind of going through different parents at that point,
Right. You're gonna see your parents date other people,
and
you're gonna meet a lot of other new people that come into your parents' lives, which is completely normal.
Yeah, it's normal.
But it's not easy.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not the easiest thing to do. I would say that going through a divorce, being on the family side of it, it's uncomfortable. And if granted, when this happened, I was 22 at the time when my parents were splitting up. It's almost awkward, and you're not young enough to be oh shit, crying about everything and that's going on, you just kind of internalize it and it affects you, but you're more uncomfortable over anything, any other type of feeling. When my parents split up, they were pretty much on good terms, so it's not a bad divorce. I've heard some stories of people going through a divorce. The spouse takes half of whatever. They try to block them from seeing their kids, spread rumors, spread lies. In my case, it was a little bit more mellow, so it wasn't we were traumatized. Me and my little brother, who's 11, by the way, we weren't so much traumatized. For him, it's mostly just okay, now he has more people to see, and he has 2 houses that he can go to.
Right.
Which is crazy. My parents spoiled the hell out of him. He's
Right.
a lucky kid. But for me, I would say the way that I was traumatized by this instance was that when my mom decided to end things with my dad, she kind of gave me this choice, oh, you can stay here, or you can go with him. But if you stay here, I'll charge you rent, whatever. That part wasn't traumatizing or anything. It just seemed pretty standard. But for my situation, she acted, at least through my eyes, as if I kind of wasn't a part of her family anymore.
Right.
Which was it was pretty heartbreaking.
It's your own mother.
Yeah, it was my own mom. And of course, I decided to stay with my father. I used to be on various different plans and gym memberships with her, and she took me off of all those, and she ended up putting the new person that she met on the gym membership, basically replacing me. So for me, it was traumatic because it had almost seemed like
Right.
I was replaced on that side of the family, which it sucked, but I was like old enough to kind of like just internalize it, take it for what it is, and then stick to like doing stuff that like made me happier or doing whatever. But in all honesty, like it's not such a bad case of a divorce for like a kid. Like of course I've heard worse stories,
Yeah,
people being abusive, things like that. So I would say I definitely got like the lighter or nicer end of the stick on that one. But it's definitely like tough. Like even like little things like that can really like get to you, have a bad effect on you throughout your life and like how you view like your parents or whatnot. But yeah, if you are like a kid who's affected by divorce, just try not to like jump to the conclusion that oh my god it's like your fault or like why is this happening, like I thought like they were supposed to love each other, I thought this was supposed to happen. As you get older you'll kind of like realize that people have their own relationships and they make like their own choices and like
they're grown they're
yeah,
grown
like
adults.
they're adults, like you just have to be okay with these things. And it really shouldn't downplay things that you do within your life, you know, like you could still go out and about, do things that you want to do, but also like in my case, like I felt like my mother had thrown me out, had replaced me, so I just chose to stay away from that. And it's been a long time since I've talked to her because that just left such a negative kind of image in my mind,
Yeah.
you know. So like these things happen. Like these are just like a few examples of like negative effects that could happen like through divorce.
So I have 9 red flags
Hmm.
of what a divorce can come to, and let me
Yeah.
know if you saw any of these in your family. So one of them is money, lack of intimacy, infidelity, abuse, lack of compatibility, physical appearance, addictions, getting married at an early age, getting married for the wrong reasons, lack of communication, lack of equality, and a loss of identity. Did you feel like you saw any of those?
Uh, I feel like I wasn't paying like too close of attention. But I would definitely say like from what I've heard and like from what I saw, like lack of identity and also getting married at a young age. Because my parents, I'm pretty sure they got married when they were 21, 22. Like they were pretty young, you know. So it's just one of those things where they just jumped right into it, you know. Which
Right.
in any case, like is not good. Like obviously you want to know your partner before you just jump into this long-term legally binding deal, you know.
Yep.
But yeah, definitely like a loss of identity and youth, I would say. And just kind of like jumping the gun and just going straight for it versus and like later on and my parents were together for like around like 20, 21, 22 years. One of the big things because of my parents kinda jumping the gun and getting into this early and, like, not really figuring out who they were, like, 20 years down the line in this marriage, obviously, like, 1 or 2 of them or the 2 of them felt differently than they had when, like, things first started, you know, and they just, like, started to realize that. So that's, like I guess that's, like, a big thing.
Emotions do change. I feel like as you grow
Oh,
up,
yeah, 100%.
and a lot of and like you change with life, like your marriage will change as well.
Mhm.
But you should be able to always remember like why you fell in love with that person in the beginning.
Yeah.
And someone's told me something extremely important. They said, you know that person is the right one when you wake up next to them and you still feel like that giddy little schoolgirl from when you first met and the butterflies are still there.
Mhm.
That's when you know, like, when you're still excited to see that person and that excitement will always be there. And that's when you know.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of from like a lot of things that I see in today's modern like social media or anything like that, like people kind of downplaying how great a relationship should be or like how they'll find like negative things to be a common reoccurrence.
Right.
I'm trying to think of an example. Like let's say like for example like oh like don't you hate when like your husband like does this blah 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 like just like a vague example of something
Right.
happening, and then people are like, haha, yeah, 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 that's so funny. Like they almost like glorify like negative things happening in a relationship. And I feel like in real life, like if you really care about somebody, like I guess those things do happen, but that doesn't build like a strong, solid relationship. Like from
No, it
what I've
doesn't.
seen, like because I mean, like I've seen my parents like do that stuff, and they're just like, "Ha, you're so like you always do this, blah blah blah." But they just always like kind of joke about the bad things instead of just being like, "Hey, like I honestly don't really like
Well,
that." Like
yeah,
being like straight up, like one of the best things you could do when you're in a relationship and
and marriage.
marriage, it's just to tell them, like, straight up, like, I don't like that."
Yeah,
Or, "Hey, do you mind stopping that? It makes me, like, not at peace," or you
yeah,
whatever,
no, yeah. And also, the crazy thing is, you can tell how someone's marriage is going simply by asking them one question, and that
Mhm.
is, "I'm about to get married. What do you think of like marriage?" And whatever
Yes.
response they give you is exactly how their relationship is going in their own lives. So if
Mhm.
they come up with the response like, "I love my marriage, marriage is great, like I really think you should do it if you really think this person's the right one," then yeah. Or if they respond with, "I don't know how I feel, marriage is very different," and they try to reflect on their own without explaining like that they're going through it,
Uh-huh.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Yeah, that definitely makes sense.
So some things that can we focused on that was very difficult is helping someone go through a divorce. Like, what is it like being the person that's your best friend and you see a best friend go through a divorce and how you can help them? So we figured out there's a couple things you could say to them, and what's some good things to say to someone that's going through a divorce. Number one is, I know it's hard on you, but it won't always feel this way. I'm sorry things ended for you too. Do you want to talk about it? And I think another thing I like to jump off of that one is, do you want to talk about it or do you want to be distracted from it?
Mhm.
Let's go grab dinner and a movie like old times. Do you need a place to stay? In the end, everything's going to be okay. Let's have a day out, just the two of us. I think that's also really important, making sure you distract that person from what's going on in their head and the demons that
Yeah.
they're fighting. You're a wonderful person. Those affirmations, making sure you tell them how you really feel about them. You're wonderful and you're loved. Let me recommend a therapist if you need one. That's always good too.
Yeah.
Always recommend trying to helping that person out by maybe helping them push that step of seeing a therapist. Show up, lend an ear, remain neutral, give your support, help with the move, bring some food, and encourage and uplift and point out the positives. Pointing out the positives is extremely important because you make sure that that person is staying positive in their life
Mhm.
because they're going through it. Marriage and a divorce brings so much strain on your mental health, and that energy that you have, that negative energy that flows out of a divorce, especially a bad one. And being in the industry that I am, I always get the calls of clients that are speaking about their divorces and how difficult it is. And it does traumatize me and scare me from getting married because you hear the things you hear and you're just like, wow,
Yeah,
that's
like the
that's what marriage is like. And it kind of just like pushes you away from like
yeah.
not wanting marriage. But you need to make sure that you're always there for that person and offering your mental health support, even though like your mental health may not be doing so hot. Just being able to offer the positivity to that person could actually help better your own mental health as well.
Mhm.
Just being there for that person is really important.
Yeah, 100% agree with that.
Well, thank you for listening. I just want to remind you, please, please, please remember, you are not alone in this fight. I got your back. How does that sound, Cheyenne?
Sounds good. Thank you for joining us, everybody.
Can't wait for the next episode, guys. See you soon.
See ya.